My name's Leszek, and I will be talking with Paul Van der Boor about balancing innovation with regulatory compliance and the role of product leadership in fintech. Starting from the top, Paul, can you walk us through your career journey, highlighting the key milestones that led you to your current role as head of product at Mollie?
Yeah, sure. So by way of introduction, I'm leading I'm co-lead of the partnerships domain, which is an area in Mollie that looks after platform customers. So those are integrations with e-commerce parties like Shopify, WooCommerce, SaaS parties or marketplaces. And so this is really we kind of work in domains, and this is a domain of about 100 people that thinks through how do we kind of not only build products for these tech platforms, but also how do we distribute our products at large. Because this is on the one hand a customer group, but on the other hand also a distribution channel for us. So how I got there, I started my career, I was a bit of an entrepreneur in university. I studied econometrics, and based on those two things, I was like, I want to do something entrepreneurial. I also want to do something, I studied econometrics, so I also want to do something that is tangible and where you can use your kind of more analytical brain. And so I ended up in the world of investing and I did an internship at a private equity company. I really enjoyed it. Did a short stint abroad in consulting for a year in South Africa, and I came back and I worked at an investment firm for the next 4 or 5 years, which was an incredible opportunity because you work for a very small team with very smart people, and the person that hired me and led the firm is a very successful entrepreneur in his own right and an incredible person to learn from. And I kind of got to that opportunity at like age 22, 23 to kind of learn from this team and be in a conversation in boardrooms, kind of talk about strategic topics, about buying companies, about strategic direction. And so it really taught me a lot about business. And as we used to say, it was better than business school, right? You really you work hard, but you also learn incredible amounts. I did that. I did a little bit shorter than 5 years. At some point though, I kind of felt like this need of, okay, how do I kind of do really cool stuff with my life? And some of my friends were working in starting businesses or entrepreneurs or working in the technology space. And what I really loved was that they were thinking about how they should change the world for the better. And I felt sometimes in an investment role, you're also a bit of a tourist, right? You feel like you come in, you're relatively inexperienced, you kind of talk to these topics, but you've never been with your boots in the mud, you've never really done it yourself. And so I decided, okay, I can either stay here, it has a lot of advantages, it was an incredible place to work, but I also am drawn to kind of finding a bit more of an exciting journey in the world of technology. And so I looked around of like a company that was on a high growth trajectory and to really kind of experience what it's like to build a company. And I joined, I kind of came across Mollie. I joined Mollie as chief of staff. At the time, we were 150 people. And Mollie, I was at the right time, the right moment. I picked up my laptop the first day of work. I then immediately got sent home because everything closed and COVID happened. And Mollie was really well positioned. Mollie, by the way, is a payments company that helps businesses all sizes to get paid online, and we also do a lot of other beautiful things that I'm sure we'll get to talk about. And Mollie was really well positioned to help all of these offline businesses to go online and kind of sell stuff online and process payments. And so we grew very fast. I was, as I said, 150 people. 2 or 3 years later, we were 850 people, and we raised in total somewhere like $800-900 million in funding. And that was a super exciting journey. I kind of made my way through the company. I did operations. I worked a bit in the finance team, fundraising. I did go-to-market in a couple of markets. And then I kind of were led into the world of products. And the reason for that was, one, you also get the opportunity, right? And I got that opportunity. But if I think about the choice that I made was like, if you work in a tech company working in the commercial area or in the operational area, that's all interesting. But really thinking to, okay, how do we go from A to B and where's the future? that's really what you do in product. And I think that was where I really thought, okay, I can kind of make the most impact here and really kind of work on steering the ship in a way that will be more successful with each other. And so I really got drawn to this area. And that's been a super interesting journey for myself and for the team with me.
Fascinating. I was going to ask about the decision or the reason reason behind selecting or actually focusing on the product side. But I think, that resonates very much with me, that it has a lot of impact, but also it requires looking not just what's around the corner, but more long-term view of the product, of the business. It's fascinating to me. Stuff.
And I think there is quite a lot of overlap between an investment job and a product role, right? Because I think one of the most important things of our product role is also deciding, okay, what are you committing yourself to in your team, right? As soon as you're building something, it always takes a little bit longer than you expect, and you're always a little bit you're working on the topic for a while. And so depending, of course, on the nature of the product, but I think understanding really, okay, where are we going to create value for our customers and for our business, right? And how do we prioritize these different opportunities? It's very similar to an investment job where you get a lot of opportunities to kind of invest in different businesses or in investment thesis, and you get it on your desk and you try to kind of evaluate according to a set of criteria. Okay, where's the place I'm going to put my money and my time in? And in a product role, I think that's a mindset that is very important, right? And I think if you grow from a junior product person to a somewhat more senior, you learn also that it's not about making everybody happy or saying yes to a lot of things or supporting a variety of stakeholders, but really thinking through, okay, how do you create value for ourselves and our customers? I think that's and that's really
exactly
neat in both jobs.
I think it requires every single product person to actually understand what problem they are solving. And I think in many departments or areas of the company, people forget about it, about what is the actual problem that they're solving for the client. I think this is also the overlap or the common thing that in investment, where you actually think about what's the problem, what's the addressable market for that problem. Does the solution actually solve? That's whether the proposed solution actually solved the problem, etc. I think many cases or many other areas of the company, say sales, for example, or administration, it's not the main thing. That's it.
No, and in both worlds, and then we'll stop with the analogies. I think you also burn yourself if you don't do your homework well enough, right? So, an investment opportunity that comes across, and you haven't really done enough due diligence, as it's called. Like you haven't really asked a couple of questions underlying. Okay, why is it growing so fast? Is there a catch somewhere, right? You need to be quite skeptical, right? Because if things are presented too good, someone's trying to sell you something, that there's always a question, okay, is it as good as being presented? And similarly, if you're in a product role and commercial stakeholders or other stakeholders tell you, hey, this is the next big thing, we need to build this because their customer told them so. If you don't ask a couple of follow-up questions and you really understand, okay, how does this work? Is it really viable? Is it feasible and usable? Then you build something that in the end of the day doesn't add a lot of value. I've seen this happening a lot in our business also go wrong, right? Where something is presented, everybody gets on the train, everybody's exciting. But then for reasons that you might have been able to find out a bit earlier in the process, things don't generate the impact that you expect. And I think that's the mindset and the work you need to do as in a product role. Probably everybody in a company is like, okay, how does this really work? And it requires you to be very rigorous and disciplined into understanding, okay, how do things work? And indeed, falling in love with the problem also to a large extent.
Exactly. I'd like to unpack the concept of embedded finance. This is a term we hear often. And could you explain what embedded finance is or means, and also how does it fit the context of Mollie's business model?
Yeah, I think, if you would look at the definition, right, I think embedded finance in itself means you're basically integrating in a somewhat seamless manner a financial service or financial product into an everyday platform for experience. And I think the typical example that I think people really can relate to is you go on your website to book an airline ticket, right? And you came there to fly from Paris to Amsterdam. And on top of that kind of flow, at some point, someone also asks you, "Hey, do you also need a car?" Right? And so that's a journey that's really embedded into that flight buying journey. And the same way we do the same with embedded finance. That means that using a software platform, and on top of that, you've embedded a financial product, which can be payments, which can be lending, which can be a bank account, a credit card that you want to receive. And why this is so interesting, I think, is because it really gives you opportunity to kind of almost revolutionize everyday services and businesses. And the really exciting part about embedded finance is that normal, not so digital businesses get the opportunity to kind of become more digital, and as a way to kind of revolutionize their business. I think an example is, if you go into a restaurant, right, you need to pay there. You kind of make a reservation beforehand. They end up there, then you need to pay at some point, and you walk out of the restaurant. I think what software platforms that we're working with are doing, for instance, is that you create a reservation immediately. On top of that, you pay. They maybe store your card details somewhere. You enjoy your dinner, have a nice glass of wine, and you walk out. And because the platform already understands, hey, this is the person and this is their card details, you don't even have to go anymore, wait for your check. You just automatically pay, right? And all these type of examples, I think, have the opportunity to create new experiences that are better than the standalone alternative. But also they create a world that's much more inclusive, gives new opportunities to different consumer groups, but also businesses. And what I really like also what we're doing with Mollie is that the way we've always been designed, and the way Ali and Mol started the company 14 years ago, was really to kind of help small businesses to be really successful. And in that same journey, embedded finance helps tech platforms across the board to help all sorts of small businesses, whether they're in retail or in hospitality, or whether they're gyms, to kind of really run their local offering much better. And I think that's the thing that really gets me excited about embedded finance. It really has the opportunity to do better than we had, to give them access to means to invest in their business, to grow. And that's very much a journey and a mission that we're supporting also here at my job.
Could you describe in what way does Mollie actually solve this problem or help those small businesses to flourish? How do we exactly solve this problem for those people?
Yeah, so for instance, we worked with a team on the Mollie Capital. So coming from an investment world, I've been in the process of trying to attract financing, right? So you might have a business and you want to buy new machinery, or you want to invest in working capital. So for all sorts of reasons, people want to invest in a business to grow and to do better. Now, if you do that and you go to a local bank, it takes forever, right? You need to make a financial statement. You need to write a business plan. You need to find the right people, and after a 3 to 6 month process where you've done a lot of work, you need maybe get audited numbers from your accountant. Then at some point they come back and they either give you yes or no, and it's a pretty binary flow. And so you might have done a lot of work there. And as a result of that, and this is very well documented across the European Union, small businesses have a financing gap, right? So they would like to get access to funding to grow their business, but they don't have access to it. Within Mollie, we are servicing over 240,000 small to large to kind of medium-sized to even large enterprise type businesses. And so a lot of these customers don't have access to that funding. And so what we've done with Mollie is that based on the data that they have with us, because we see how much revenue they make, we automatically track that and we say, hey, if you want, there's funding available to you. And it just takes 2 clicks of a button to get that access. And I think this is really the power of embedded finance. It takes an existing platform, all of those customers, those 240,000 businesses are already on our platform, and we know them. We've done a lot of research. We've done our customer due diligence on them. We know their data, right, and how well they're moving. And now they get a really integrated and seamless experience because 2 clicks of the button, they get access to that funding, and they don't have to do any applications. It's just there, and that creates a whole lot of opportunity and a whole lot of security, right? Because now you might be an e-commerce store that really wants to do something exciting for the Christmas period and Black Friday, and you want to buy a bit more stock to grow your business that year. Then you can kind of just flexibly press that button, get access to that funding, and then sell a lot more during that period. And I think that's how financial services can really support also our economy to do much better. I think that's a example of an embedded finance journey, and I can give you, of course, a couple more. But in the end of the day, everything that we do is about creating products that are really easy to use and to make financial services really simple, right? And whether it's payments, whether it's lending or other products, it should be simple, it should be accessible, and it really allows all of these businesses to grow and prosper.
Nice. It's also, I can also, there's a bunch of benefits, and I can also think about other ones, like in terms of financing and lending, the risk is reduced in a significant way for the people with capital. It's like, it's database, it's not random, it's not like, you mentioned all the paperwork, etc. But the other side, the one that actually owns the capital and distributes or allocates it, it's so much safer on the other hand as well, right? It's database, like you just said.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that's also why this is going to work, right? It's better because we will get better customer experiences. The ability to adopt and to kind of get access to the product is much faster and accessible. And on the other hand, it's much more data driven indeed. So that means there's no person in a bank picking up a file, reading through information that might or not be correct. All of that work is done. So you kind of save a lot of cost, operational hassle. And then indeed on the decision making, I think risk-based decision making based on data are a lot better than the alternative, right? It's real time. You can see how much performance is happening with the business the day before. So this is really an example of how financial services will really become a lot better than the alternative. And that's also why I'm very hopeful that Mollie's and other parties like us are going to really make this a lot, this industry that has been, like a financial services industry is of course quite a weird one, right? It's been relatively profitable. Reason for that is the barriers to entry are relatively high, right? You need to get a lot of regulatory licenses. So innovation in banks and other types of parties have been relatively low compared to other sectors, and it's not so easy to disrupt those. And I think the whole fintech sector with parties like Mollie are really now able, based on new experiences, new forms of data, to really try to kind of make things better. And I think that's a super exciting journey as well.
Sure, for sure. So what it's like to build a product in that, hyper growth fintech environment? What it's like? It doesn't seem like a walk in the park.
I mean, I don't know. Like, I don't think it's necessarily more difficult than other parts of the software world, right? I think building good products in itself is a very challenging thing, and I think the added complexity, of course, in a fintech environment is that it's regulated. So that means that experimentation in itself is slightly more difficult, right? So I think in a SaaS setup, in a normal software environment, if you're Google, you can kind of do a bit of A/B testing, and then hey, is this a better or worse outcome? You test. Now, in certain areas of our business, that's possible, but in other areas of our business, for instance, launching new ways to do onboarding your customer, new ways to add new payment mechanisms, maybe other ways to move money. Some of this stuff really requires you to be quite rigorous on what you can do and cannot do, because there's a regulator that watches over your shoulder, and that's really going to ask you, okay, if you're launching new products and services, have you done your homework? Have you done the checks around what kind of risks are involved? Have you mitigated those risks? And so that means that the added complexity in our world is that experimentation is somewhat more limited, and the time to market and the thinking you have to do in advance of that slightly more complex. On the other hand, some of it it's not always bad, right? I think sometimes it also is a good forcing mechanism for you to really do. Okay,
think before doing.
Have we thought about everything, right? Have we thought about all the risk? Have we thought about our key assumptions here? And so, and I think that's an evolution that also has happened in our company. Maybe at the onset, you really think about compliance and risks and all of those words as something that's really hampering you. I think when you get more mature as a business, as Mollie has done, some of these functions also become a way to kind of support the actual outcomes, right? And to create better products. And I think that's also a journey that we're on here as well. Yeah, so to kind of summarize, I think it is all of the complexities of normal product building, which is not really hard, with the added complexity of regulatory scrutiny. Because the worst outcome is that you do something and that the bank, the Dutch central bank, which is basically regulating our business, as well as the UK FCA, is telling us, hey, what you've done there is not okay, and we're going to fine you or worse, right? That would be pretty bad.
Do you have any sort of rule of thumb or framework or a mental model, if you will, for balancing the innovation with and stability or facing or compliance? Is it, I don't know, just guessing, be as fast as possible, but compliant at the same time, or
yeah, you can't cut any corners there, right? Everything has to hold up to the. It has to be compliant, and it has to be in accordance with rules and regulation. And there's absolutely no shortcut that we will take there. I think on stability, I think that's another interesting thing, right? I think for a payments business like Mollie, stability is absolutely critical, right? Because you provide infrastructure that our companies, our customers are relying on. So that means that even more important than doing new stuff is that you are a stable platform, that you have super high uptime. We talk about 999% uptime, right? So really high performance. And that means that throughout the years, we also always have to invest a lot in stability and making sure that our systems are scalable. And that's, of course, a bit of tension between making sure things are secure, stable, reliable, versus sometimes moving forward and doing innovation, right? And I think there's no real good answer for like how you do that. I think what I've seen, and also in an individual product team, you have the same discussion, right? It's like, are we building this new feature, or are we going to work on some tech debt? I don't really like the word, but on cleaning up our code and making things more scalable. And I think the one lesson I have on it is that communication is the most important, right? Different stakeholders have different perspectives and bring different values to the table. And it's really about understanding everybody and where they're coming from. Where this goes wrong is one group of people is having too much power, right? And they only look at the compliance side of the world, or it's only engineers that only care about that only care about stability, or it's a product person that pushes through and just wants to move forward with new features, right? In the end of the day, somewhere in the balance of the different opinions and the different people on the table is the right answer. And I think that's really the one thing you cannot do enough of, is really communicate and checking in. Okay, where are we? What does it mean? And that's where team rituals and team discipline also really comes into play.
Mm-hmm. Collaboration rather than handovers, in a sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's a nice way that you put it. Exactly.
Just out of curiosity, what's wrong with the word tech or the phrase tech debt for you? Why do you like it? Why do you don't like
it? It basically, it's such a black and white way of phrasing things, right? It assumes there's an end state somewhere, and only if you solve this tech debt, you end up there, right? And I mean, I understand the context in which the word is used, but I think in the end of the day, I've never if you would commit your team to just kind of set up the perfect architecture and endlessly build on the scalability of the systems, the reliability, all the other beautiful things, then that is a task that will never finish, because you can always do better, right? And so it's really about understanding with a team like what's acceptable, what's not acceptable. And I think that's a gray skill. That's not black and white. It doesn't mean that if you finish this, that you don't have tech debt anymore. It means really like, hey, we as a team want to reach these goals. And that means that we're going to kind of accept that this is built in a relatively minimal way. And some other stuff we really want to test and have absolutely the best performance. Like we want to build a Ferrari or we want to build maybe a bike, because in different circumstances that both would fit the purposes of the much better. So I think that's the so I think the tech debt word is really it avoids the nuance that's behind the discussion.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I dislike about that phrasing.
I'd like to shift gears a bit and talk about the landscape of the industry. I think it's rapidly evolving. And could you share your thoughts on the most significant trends or shifts you're observing in the finance or payment, or specifically payments landscape?
Yeah, of course. I think, and it's, of course, I'm also very biased because this is the area I work in. But what is fundamentally changing, and maybe I can tell you a bit of a story about Mollie, right? So Mollie got started in about 40 years ago, and at the time, the banks were the way to do payments, right? So you would build your e-commerce website, and you would maybe go to ING here in the Netherlands, and they would give you access to a local payment method, ideal. And that was an incredible hassle. So right, I think at some point, Alia Mol, the founder of our business, built a SaaS company, MessageBird, and he also wanted to accept payments there. And he and the team kind of noticed, okay, this is incredible, difficult to do. Let's build a more modern API that will give you access as a developer to really easily process payments, to get paid and actually build a business. So fast forward, they kind of bundled all of these payment methods, and you get out of the box, you get credit cards, you get Ideal, you get PayPal, right? That came out of the box. These e-commerce businesses, at the same time, also had an evolution, right? So at some point, everybody built their own website. And now people were looking at that and they said, hey, if everybody is building the same website, I can also build a SaaS solution for it. And so e-commerce businesses didn't build their own stuff anymore, but rather they used Shopify, WooCommerce, and all the other e-commerce platforms. And so what happened was that instead of directly building out your website, you could get this out of the box. And instead of having to directly go to a payments offering, Ideal, MasterCard, you could go to a SaaS solution model. And these two things colluded, and now we got embedded finance because all of these e-commerce platforms then said, okay, we can also solve your payments needs, all right? So Mollie wouldn't necessarily have to go directly to that business, but rather on top of Shopify or other companies, you would get the payment solution of Mollie out of the box by just clicking a button on Shopify, WooCommerce, and the other relevant e-commerce parts. And so did our competitors, right? And I think that SaaSification of e-commerce was very interesting. Now, the same is happening now in another area of the world. And I think that's happening not in e-commerce, because I think that was the first industry where it happened, but also in all of the other verticals. And I think that's where the most interesting thing is happening now in payments, is that across all of these old school industries, whether it's in B2B, whether it's in B2C, SaaS solutions are coming up, and they are vertical SaaS typically, and they are powering all of these individual businesses. And on top of that, they will get access to a lot of financial service, right? And that's where embedded finance comes into play. Now, where we are playing in that area is that we are really enabling all of these SaaS platforms and all of these marketplace and other kind of tech platforms to make that leap, to kind of say, hey, what has happened here with Shopify, where you kind of get payments and other things out of a box, we're going to have the same journey for all of these platforms, but now in, as I said, in gyms, in restaurants, in different industrial goods, in you can't name it. In any part of our economy, things will kind of morph into one. And payments is going to be essential, right? And what we see is happening is the way this payments gets distributed is no longer you as a single business go to a party that provides you with an in-person payment solution or goes to an online solution, but rather you go to parties like a SaaS platform, and Mollie will be in the back powering that journey. And that's I think that's quite exciting, because it will make a lot of these customer journeys a lot better. It will make things work a lot more smooth. And you get all of these new and exciting products that will come out of it, whether it's in lending, whether it's in, and that's the examples that I talked about. I think that's a dramatic shift from where the industry has been. And there's a couple of reasons why this is happening. It's cloud. It's where the hardware that you need for an in-person payment is changing. You can do it from a tablet or on your phone. And all of these journeys will kind of converge into one. And I think that's really what's most interesting about what's happening now in the payments industry, that the way we are consuming financial services will change.
That's very, very interesting. My understanding is that you guys are actually, your intention is to catch that wave. You're probably already on that wave, considering the growth, the financing, everything, that happened so far. Is that right?
Yeah, we've been doing this for a while, right? So also working with these tech platforms, right? As I said, we were quite early on the journey of e-commerce platforms, and we've kind of been doing that for the past many years. And so there's a couple of reasons why. So what there's a couple of reasons what you need to kind of empower and build the infrastructure for these platforms, right? So if you're a SaaS business, so what are you looking for? You're looking for a party that gets you really clean and modern APIs, right? And makes it really developer friendly to work with your PSP in this case. But you also need someone that kind of understands the local business, because you want to have a tailored payment solution, and that's the complexity of payments, right? In Germany, the way to pay is very different than in France versus Italy. So you need a player that can kind of help you with all of those local markets. And then you need to deal with all of these, and that's, I think, what's particularly strong about Mollie and where our heritage is coming from. If you're a tech platform, you itself are representing a lot of your customers on their end, right? So you might be a hotel software, but then you have a lot of hotels attached to that, right? So you need a party that then helps you deal with all of the hassle and operational load of working with all these smaller businesses. And that's, I think, why Mollie is really catching up on this way, because on the one hand, we have got really good technology, and we're building out a lot of cool technology, but on the other hand, we also really understand what it's like to be servicing a smaller business or medium-sized business, and to kind of help them work through support and onboarding, and we kind of offer that basically as a service to all of these tech platforms, so that they don't have to deal with the complexity, but we take it in on our end.
By the way, the story of you guys actually raising roughly $800 million dollars. That's my understanding. That's an impressive figure, and I was wondering if you could share a little bit of insight into what this process was like, and key lessons learned. It's always fundraising journeys is always interesting topic for our target audience, I believe.
Yeah, I think I mean, of course, a lot of it is timing as well, right? So I think understanding when your business is ready and the market is ready for going to for kind of fundraising. I think our founder Adrian Moore has an incredible. I mean, he has got the experience and also incredible intuition of when that timing is right. And I think a couple of lessons there is, I think what Mollie has done really well in that process is be very well prepared. I think we were talking to potential investors for a while, right? I think fundraising in itself is not a binary thing, but rather you kind of build up a network for a while. You kind of talk to these investors, and you don't really kind of start that process when you're ready to push the button, but perhaps you already start quite a lot earlier, and you build a bit of an ecosystem around you. And then when we were ready to kind of do the fundraising, I think we had a really strong team internally here that built a great story, showed a lot of data, right? And that took a bit of preparation, right? So the maturity of being able to show, okay, what is your LTV to CAC? What are your growth rates? And really kind of let the data beef up the story about your growth and the opportunity ahead. I think that's very important in a fundraising story. And yeah, be really on top of that narrative. I think Mollie has really big dreams. I think maybe a bit unlike the local Dutch market or maybe European businesses sometimes. We also had an American CEO at the time. I think he also helped us push there. But I think our
bold vision.
I think, yeah, man, we had a really strong vision. I think our led by our founder, by our management team, and I think people at the board. I think we really want to dream big. I think that also came across, right? Because an investor is not going to put any money in if it doesn't have, like, if it's a small business and you want to stay small, that's fine. But then it's not a venture-backed business, right? Venture.
It's about growth, yeah.
Venture capitalists are looking for placing an investment and then have outsized return because they take quite a lot of risk, of course, because that future isn't there. And so they need to see and feel within the air of the company and the people they talk to in the industry and how it's portrayed that there's an opportunity to do something really big. And I think we at the time and still are on that journey of making that impact. And I think that's what people get. So I think creating that type of excitement is super important in a fundraising journey.
To your point, very early in our discussion, you said you after the investment sort of engagement or in being engaged in the investment space, you selected a company to join, which was growing fast, I believe, and I believe this was one of your, or maybe I'm wrong, but I think you also sort of approached it as an investor, but of your own time and effort, and you joined Mollie. Like, it was a very conscious process and conscious decision to join this particular company, not other out there. That's my I sort of like think that,
true. I never thought about it like that, but I guess I was like, I think having a if you're thinking about doing a next career step, right? I think like we all have finite time, right? I mean that's the most that's the most truthful. The most truthful about our human experience is that we don't have all the time in the world. So if you're committing to do something and joining a company is at least a 3 or maybe a 5 year commitment, right? I think much shorter doesn't always give you all the benefits. Then you need to be mindful of where you're going to spend your time on. And the problem is, of course, is you don't really know, right? It's a bit of you don't have all the information to take a really good decision. But you can be very clear about what your own criteria are and what is the thing that gets you exciting. I think for me, my previous firm's motto was building better businesses. So on top of everything, it was okay, I want to be part of a company where I really learn how to build a business. And where do I learn that better than a high growth company? Because that's where a lot of interesting stuff happenings, right? You need to hire people. You need to think through how to structure companies. You need to restructure your organization a couple of times. You need to think about how you build a culture or how you evolve a culture, rather. You need to think through how to set up new teams, how to go to new products, how to build product market fit and new customer segments. And I think all of those things came for me at Mollie. Did I know exactly the type of journey that was ahead of me when I joined? No, I was super lucky.
Luck plays a part as well, right?
No, absolutely. Like you can join the best startup in the world and it might fail, right? 2 months later. So I'm not saying you have all the control in the world here, but what is important, I think, is very important.
Nice. My final question or topic I'd like to discuss is your leadership lessons. Throughout your career, especially in your current role. What are some of your most valuable leadership lessons you've learned?
I really think the most important thing that I had to learn was when you come from a kind of more investment background, right, which is very meritocratic, by the way, but also everybody there is very ambitious and is expecting to work quite hard, right? And it's also very, I think the culture that I came from was very opinionated and very and the standards for performance were super high. And so it's very much on the challenging part and challenging yourself to do better, challenging the companies you work with to do better, challenging the management team you're working to do better. And I really like that environment. But it takes also a certain person, a certain mindset, right? When I joined Mollie and I worked in different teams, I started to lead different teams. I think what is very important that I had to learn was you can't rely only on challenge all the time, right? Because people won't like you very much, and it's not typically very enjoyable. So I always think about this framework, care and dare. Someone once asked me, okay, Paul, what do you think is the right balance between caring and daring for a given person? And I said, good question. Probably should be 60-40 or so a little bit more care than dare, where dare is the challenging part and care is like personally investing. And so then the person replied, yeah, that's wrong. It is, you need to care 100% and only then you get to dare someone to do better, right? So I think what I think is very important when working with teams is like you need to fully invest in your team and enjoy having fun with each other, care about someone's personal life before you even get the opportunity to challenge them to do better and to do great things, right? And I think I don't believe in the type of leadership or boss where you're kind of just like Steve Jobs style, perhaps, like where you're shouting at everybody, okay, it needs to be grandiose. Like not a lot of us get to be Steve Jobs, right? And I haven't seen and unless you're a brilliant inventor yourself, I think you also shouldn't try. So I think, yeah, that would be my main lesson. Really invest in your personal relationships. And I think another thing that I'll say about it is also, if your team and yourself are also having fun, right? Things also things start to gel a lot more. And I think that kind of sense of joy that you get when things are going well, when people are actually showing up to work with a lot of excitement on what they're working on, you'll see that things will go better, the quality will be better, and things will go a lot more efficient. And I think an analogy that I once heard was, I think it was in a podcast, and it maybe resonates a bit with the story. It was like, if someone asks you about a Ferrari, do you think it's an efficient car? I mean, nobody will say a Ferrari is an efficient car, like it's a very fast car, right? And if you think about work, we often think about a Ferrari, like it needs to be done fast, you need to get to the destination quickly, perhaps very flashy as well. But actually, that's a wrong metaphor, and you really should go for efficiency. You shouldn't kind of be a fast flash and then take a lot of energy, a lot of fuel, and then be tired the next day. Actually, you should kind of efficiently go from A to B and really have not spend too much fuel on the different tasks. So don't be a Ferrari, but rather something very, perhaps a Tesla or something very eco-friendly, because that's, I think, much better for a team and a company culture to really excel.
Long term, especially, yeah. I mean, I love this phrase about caring and daring, and you have to have the first one first, and then actually challenge. I think there's also, And that balance, I think there's always, what I've observed in the market is always, sometimes there's also, people forget about the daring part. There's also a balance needed there. I think, that's precisely what you said is what I believe.
Yeah, that's the other way, right? So I particularly probably would position myself into going too quickly to the daring part, and that's not because I think I don't care about people, but just because my mindset was very much colored in a way where I was like, okay, let's do crazy things together, and that was where I get a lot of my energy from. I think the opposite is also very true, right? I think people, managers that just care and are very soft and talk about a lot of stuff, but aren't helping people to grow in their career and to do things that they're proud of and to create impact. That also is completely like disempowering, right? And people just check out completely. So I think indeed it's 100% of both. Like you cannot just care about someone and not ask them to do great things, and vice versa.
Great insights, Paul. Thank you very much. It was super valuable for me. Thank you for your time.
Follow Matt and Leszek on LinkedIn.